One. All right, let's dive a little deeper into this 1974 Oldsmobile Delta 88, shall we? First off, can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that this beauty has had only 2 owners in its lifetime? That's a testament to how well loved and cared for this car has been. And with just 120,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear that those owners didn't just let it sit in the garage collecting dust. They took this baby out for regular spins and made sure it stayed in tip-top shape. Now let's talk about that engine. A 350-400 is no joke, folks. It's got the power to get you where you need to go, and then some. And with the AC system keeping you cool and comfortable, you can enjoy those long summer drives without breaking a sweat. Sure, the paint job might not be perfect, but that's part of the charm of owning a classic car. It's got character, and that 610 rating means it's still in pretty darn good shape for its age. Plus, with a little TLC, you could easily bump that up a notch or two. But the real star of the show here is the interior. A 910 rating? That's practically unheard of for a car this old. You can tell that the previous owners really took pride in keeping it in pristine condition. From the plush seats to the dash and everything in between, it's clear that no expense was spared in maintaining this Delta 88's cabin. And let's not forget about the bones of this car. The frame rails, floors, and trunk pan are all in excellent shape, which is a huge plus when you're dealing with a classic. No one wants to buy a vintage ride only to find out it's got more holes than Swiss cheese, am I right? At the end of the day, this 1974 Oldsmobile Delta 88 is a solid investment for any enthusiast looking to add a little old-school cool to their garage. With its clean title, automatic transmission, and well-maintained interior and exterior, it's ready to provide you with miles and miles of driving enjoyment. And at just $7,000, it's a steal compared to some of the other classic coupes out there. So, what are you waiting for? If you're in the market for a vintage ride that's got style, power, and a whole lot of heart, this Delta 88 might just be the one for you. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Head on over to Craigslist and make this classic beauty yours today. 2. We've got a real treat for you. A gorgeous 1983 Oldsmobile 98 Brougham that's looking for a new home. This beauty is being offered on Craigslist for just $6,999, and let me tell you, it's a deal you don't want to miss. First off, can we talk about the fact that this 98 Brougham has been in the same family since day one? That's right, it's a one-family-owned car, which means it's been lovingly cared for and maintained throughout its life. And with only 101,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear that this car was cherished and not just used as a daily driver. Now, let's get to the good stuff. This Oldsmobile is fully loaded with all the bells and whistles you could want. We're talking leather seats, a moon roof, and all the power options your heart desires. It's the kind of car that makes you feel like royalty every time you slide behind the wheel. But here's the real kicker. This 98. Brougham is a true survivor. It's all original, which means it hasn't been modified or altered in any way. What you see is what you get, and what you get is a stunning piece of automotive history. The seller rates the paint job an impressive 8/10, which is no small feat for a car that's nearly 40 years old. The color combo is eye-catching and sure to turn heads wherever you go. And the interior? A whopping 9/10. It's clear that the previous owner took great pride in keeping this car in pristine condition. Under the hood, you'll find an engine that runs like a dream. The seller mentions that it runs great, so you can rest assured that this 98 Brougham is ready to hit the road and provide you with miles of driving enjoyment. And let's not forget about the transmission. It's an automatic, which means you can sit back, relax, and let the car do the work for you. Plus, with a clean title, you can have peace of mind knowing that this car has a clear history and no hidden surprises. At the end of the day, this 1983 Oldsmobile 98 Brougham is a rare find. It's a one-family-owned, all-original survivor car that's fully loaded and in incredible condition. and at just $699.99, it's a steal of a deal. So if you're in the market for a classic car that's got style, class, and a whole lot of character, this 98 Brougham might just be the one for you. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Head on over to Craigslist and make this beauty yours today. Trust me, you won't regret it. 3. We've got a real gem for you, a 1980 Cadillac Seville that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $8,500. This beauty is a rare find, with incredibly low miles and a clean interior that'll make your jaw drop. First things first, let's talk about those miles. With only 65,000 on the odometer, this Seville has barely been broken in. It's clear that the previous owner took great care of this car and didn't just use it as a daily driver. And when you see the interior, you'll understand why. The seats, carpets, door panels, and dash are all in very good condition, with the simulated wood trim looking like it just rolled off the showroom floor. And get this, the ashtrays have never even been used. This is a non-smoking interior, folks, which is a huge plus in our book. Now let's talk about the exterior. The original paint is still shining bright, and with a little buffing, it'll look like $1 million. The body is straight as an arrow, although some of the plastic filler panels do need to be replaced. But hey, that's just a minor detail when you're dealing with a car this clean. The front grille and bumpers are in like-new condition, which is a testament to how well this Seville has been cared for over the years. And while it will need new tires, the seller assures us that it ran like a dream when it was last parked. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that's ready to take you wherever you need to go. And with a clean title and automatic transmission, you can hop behind the wheel and hit the road with confidence. But here's the real kicker. This Seville was sold new from Pat Patterson Cadillac in Oakland, which means it's got a pedigree that's hard to beat. It's a piece of automotive history that's just waiting for a new owner to take it home and give it the love it deserves. Now, the seller does mention that the headliner is falling, which is a common issue with cars of this age, but honestly, that's a small price to pay for a car that's in such incredible condition overall. So, if you're in the market for a classic Cadillac that's got style, class, and a whole lot of character, this 1980 Seville might just be the one for you. And at just $8,500, it's a steal of a deal. 4. We've just spotted a stunning 1984 Chevrolet Corvette on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this beauty is not to be missed. With a price tag of just $8,500, this Vette is a steal of a deal. First off, can we talk about the mileage? This Corvette has only 47,800 miles on the odometer, which is incredibly low for a car that's almost 40 years old. It's clear that this car has been well cared for and cherished by its previous owners, but what really sets this Corvette apart is its transmission. It's got a Doug Nash 4+3 manual transmission with overdrive, which is a rare find in today's market. And with a 5.7-liter V8 engine under the hood, this Vette has the power to back up its good looks. Speaking of looks, this Corvette is a real head-turner. The red paint is in excellent condition, and the car has been outfitted with a stainless steel Borla exhaust that gives it a throaty growl that'll make your heart race. Now, here's the really impressive part. This Corvette was brought out of 20 years of storage just 1 year ago. That means it's been sitting pretty, waiting for the right owner to come along and give it the love it deserves. And the seller has gone above and beyond to make sure this Vette is in top shape, with many new parts listed in the pictures. One of the most notable upgrades is the new instrument cluster, which gives the interior a fresh, modern look. And the seller assures us that this Corvette runs great, shifts great, and looks great. What more could you ask for? But don't just take our word for it. The Carfax report is clean as a whistle, which means this Vette has no hidden surprises lurking in its past, and with a price tag of just $8,500, or best offer, it's a bargain that's hard to beat. Now, the seller does mention that they're not interested in any trades, which is understandable given how special this Corvette is. But if you're in the market for a classic American sports car that's got style, power, and a whole lot of character, this 1984 Corvette might just be the one for you. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to Craigslist and check out the ad for yourself. But don't wait too long. A deal this good won't last forever. And if you're lucky enough to snag this beauty, we guarantee you won't be disappointed. 5. We just spotted a 1979 Pontiac Trans Am on Craigslist that's just begging for a new owner to give it some love. And with a price tag of just $9,000, or best offer, this is a deal that's hard to beat. Now let's be real, this Trans Am isn't in perfect condition. The seller rates it as fair, which means it's got some rough edges that need to be smoothed out. But that's the beauty of a project car, right? It's a chance to put your own stamp on a classic ride and make it truly your own. Under the hood, you'll find an Oldsmobile 403 engine that the seller says runs well. They haven't had any major issues with it, which is a good sign. But if you're looking for a car that's ready to hit the road right away, this might not be the one for you. The interior has been mostly redone, which is a huge plus. And the seller has even installed a new stereo system with Bluetooth, so you can jam out to your favorite tunes while you're working on the car. However, it's worth noting that the air conditioning and heater don't work, so you'll need to factor that into your restoration plans. Now, let's talk about the body. The seller admits that it's a little rough around the edges, but again, that's to be expected with a project car. It's going to take some elbow grease to get this Trans Am looking its best, but just imagine the satisfaction you'll feel when you're done. One thing to keep in mind is that the odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown. But with only 49,656 miles showing on the odometer, it's safe to say that this car has plenty of life left in it. The title is clean, which is always a good sign. And with an automatic transmission, this Trans Am is easy to drive and perfect for cruising around town. So, if you're a Restomod enthusiast who's looking for a new project to sink your teeth into, this 1979 Pontiac Trans Am might just be the one for you. It's got a solid engine, a mostly redone interior, and a price tag that's hard to beat. But don't just take our word for it. Head on over to Craigslist and check out the ad for yourself. And if you have any questions or want to make an offer, just give the seller a text. They seem like a friendly bunch who are just looking for someone to give this Trans Am the love it deserves. 6. We just spotted a 1977 Chevrolet Camaro on Craigslist that's looking for a new owner. And let me tell you, this car has some serious potential. First off, let's talk about the price. At just $6,500, or best offer, this Camaro is a steal. But before you get too excited, it's important to note that this car is a project. The seller rates the condition as fair, which means it's going to need some work to get it back to its former glory. The seller has had this Camaro for 25 years, and as you can see from the last picture taken 17 years ago, it used to look great. But then it was sold to a guy in Texas who took it to the drag strip for some fun. Unfortunately, the car ended up sitting for most of the time, including the last 7 years. Now, here's the bad news. The motor, a 383 Chevy Stroker with NEOS, has a cracked block. The good news is that the motor only has about 2,800 miles on it, and it comes with some serious hardware, including Brodix Track 1 aluminum heads that originally cost over $2,000. The car has a lot of other great features too, like a turbo 350 transmission with a shift kit and a B&M Street super hole shot torque converter, a Curry Posey track rear end with 9, Ford 4.11 gears, originally over 2,500, and a custom ground camshaft with 580 lift and a solid roller cam. The body is finished in Firethorn red, but it could use a new paint job. The Cragar 5 spoke wheels have some rust, and the BF Goodrich tires need to be replaced. But with a little TLC, this Camaro could be a real head-turner. Inside, the car has a nice interior with gauges, a a console, and a velvet headliner. It also comes with some extra parts, including the original hood, a fiberglass front spoiler, and an old set of Mickey Thompson slicks on original Camaro wheels. Now, we know what you're thinking. A cracked block is a big problem. But hear us out. This car has a ton of potential, and it comes with a lot of high-end parts that would cost a fortune to buy new. If you're a Camaro enthusiast with the skills and the time to take on a project like this, you could end up with a seriously cool ride. But don't just take our word for it. Head on over to Craigslist and check out the ad for yourself. The seller has provided a ton of details about the car's features and history, so you can make an informed decision. 7. We just spotted a gorgeous 1984 Cadillac Eldorado on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this beauty is a real head-turner. First off, can we talk about the condition of this Eldorado? The seller rates it as excellent, and based on the description, we can see why. The interior and exterior are both clean as a whistle, which is impressive for a car that's almost 40 years old. But what really sets this Eldorado apart is its mileage. With only 52,295 miles on the odometer, this car has barely been broken in. It's clear that the previous owner took great care of this vehicle and didn't just use it as a daily driver. Speaking of previous owners, get this. This Eldorado has only had one owner in its lifetime. That's right, it's a one-owner car, which is a testament to how well it's been cared for over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a gas-powered engine that's ready to take you wherever you need to go. And with an automatic transmission, you can sit back, relax, and let the car do the work for you. Now, let's talk about the price. At $15,000, this Eldorado isn't exactly a bargain basement find, but when you consider the condition, mileage, and ownership history, it's clear that this car is worth every penny. Think about it. You're getting a piece of American automotive history that's been meticulously maintained and cherished by a single owner. It's a rare find in today's market, and it's the kind of car that will turn heads wherever you go. But don't just take our word for it. Head on over to Craigslist and check out the ad for yourself. The seller has provided plenty of details about the car's history and condition, so you can make an informed decision. And if you do decide to pull the trigger on this Eldorado, we want to hear about it. Let us know how it drives, and send us some pictures of you cruising around town in style. So what are you waiting for? If you're in the market for a classic Cadillac that's in excellent condition and has a clean title, this 1984 Eldorado might just be the one for you. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Make your move before someone else snatches up this rare find. 8. All right, let's dive a little deeper into this 1966 Pontiac Catalina. The 60s were a golden era for American muscle cars, and Pontiac was right there in the thick of it. The Catalina was Pontiac's entry-level full-size car, but don't let that fool you. It still packed a punch. In 1966, Pontiac gave the Catalina a facelift, with a more angular look that screamed, cool. Now let's talk more about that 326 V8 engine. While it may not be the biggest engine Pontiac offered at the time, it still cranked out a respectable 250 horsepower. That's more than enough to get this big boy moving down the road with authority. And with a rear-wheel drive setup, you can expect a classic muscle car driving experience. The purple paint job on this particular Catalina is definitely an attention grabber. It's not a color you see every day, and it really makes the car stand out from the crowd. But as with any older car, it's important to take a close look at the paint to check for any fading, chipping, or other imperfections. Inside, you'll find a spacious interior that's typical of cars from this era. Bench seats, a big steering wheel, and plenty of room to stretch out. Just keep in mind that creature comforts were a bit sparse back in the day, so don't expect all the bells and whistles you'd find in a modern car. Now, about that rust. It's definitely something to keep in mind, especially if you're not experienced with bodywork. Rust can be a real pain to deal with, and it can quickly spread if not taken care of. Be sure to give the car a thorough inspection, paying close attention to common problem areas like the floorboards, fenders, and trunk. At the end of the day, a 1966 Pontiac Catalina is a classic piece of American automotive history. It's got style, it's got power, and it's got personality. If you're willing to put in the work to address the rust and any other issues, this could be a really fun project car, and at $6,500 or best offer, it's not an unreasonable price for a piece of 60s nostalgia. Just be sure to do your due diligence before pulling the trigger. 9. We're checking out a real gem on Craigslist, a 1966 Ford Falcon. This classic compact car is up for grabs at $13,000, and boy, does it look like a sweet ride. But before we get too excited, let's take a closer look at what the seller has to say about it. First off, the good news. The seller mentions that the Falcon has a clean title, which is always a plus when you're shopping for a classic car. You don't want any surprises when it comes to paperwork. The odometer reads 72,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's over 50 years old. That could be a sign that this Falcon has been well cared for over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a 200 cubic inch inline-six engine. While it may not be a fire-breathing V8, the inline-six is known for its reliability and efficiency. The seller notes that the engine runs well, which is definitely a good sign. The transmission is a 3-speed manual, so get ready to row your own gears if you take this baby home. Now, let's talk about the condition of the car. The seller is upfront about the fact that the Falcon has some rust issues. They mention that there are a few rust spots, but they don't go into much detail beyond that. Rust is definitely something you'll want to take a closer look at before making an offer. It could be just a few small spots, or it could be a bigger problem lurking beneath the surface. The interior of the car is also a bit of a mystery. The seller doesn't provide any photos or details about the condition of the seats, dashboard, or other interior components. That's definitely something you'll want to check out in person before making a decision. Overall, this 1966 Ford Falcon seems like it could be a solid project car for the right buyer. It's got a clean title, low miles, and a reliable engine. But the rust issues and lack of information about the interior are definitely things to keep in mind. If you're handy with a wrench and don't mind putting in some work, this could be a fun car to tinker with. Just be sure to give it a thorough inspection before handing over any cash. 10. We've got a real treat for you. A 1965 Cadillac DeVille that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This iconic luxury sedan is a true representation of the opulence and style that defined the 60s. The seller is asking $15,000 for this beauty, but before you start reaching for your wallet, let's take a closer look at what we've got here. First off, let's talk about the good stuff. This DeVille is rocking a clean title, which is always a big plus when you're shopping for a classic car. You don't want any surprises when it comes to paperwork. The odometer shows just 71,171 miles, which is pretty low for a car that's over half a century old. That could be a sign that this Caddy has been well cared for throughout its life. Under the hood, you'll find a massive 8-cylinder engine that's ready to rumble. Cadillac was known for their smooth, powerful engines, and this one is no exception. The transmission is automatic, so you can just sit back and cruise in style. And with rear-wheel drive, you'll get that classic American car feel on the road. The exterior of this DeVille is painted in a stunning green color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. It's a color that just screams vintage cool. The seller doesn't provide any photos of the interior, so that's definitely something you'll want to check out in person. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the condition. The seller mentions that while the car runs, it does need some work and tuning. They don't go into specifics, so it's hard to say exactly what needs to be done. It could be something as simple as a tune-up, or it could be more serious mechanical issues. That's definitely something you'll want to investigate further before making an offer. The asking price of $15,000 is definitely on the high side for a car that needs work. But if the issues are relatively minor and the car is otherwise in good condition, it could be worth it for the right buyer. These classic caddies are getting harder and harder to find, and they're only going up in value. One thing to keep in mind: the seller is firm on their price and is only accepting cash. They're also not in a hurry to sell, so they may not be willing to negotiate much, and they're not interested in any trades, so don't bother offering up your old beater. Overall, this 1965 Cadillac DeVille is a classic piece of American automotive history. It's got style, it's got presence, and it's got potential. But it's also got some question marks when it comes to condition. If you're serious about taking on a project car and you've got the cash to spare, this could be a great opportunity. Just be sure to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making any deals. 11. We've got a real blast from the past on Craigslist. A 1980 Chevrolet Camaro that's looking for a new home. This classic muscle car is up for grabs at $9,500, and boy, does it have some stories to tell. Let's dive in and see what makes this Camaro so special. First off, can we talk about that paint job? This Camaro is rocking its original blue paint, which is a real rarity these days. Most classic cars have been repainted at least once in their lifetime, but not this one. It's a true survivor. However, the seller does note that the clear coat is peeling on the hood, roof, and trunk. That's definitely something to keep in mind if you're looking for a show car. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 cubic inch V8 engine with a 4-barrel carburetor. That's a classic Camaro setup that's sure to put a smile on your face every time you hit the gas. The engine is paired with a turbo 350 automatic transmission, so you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. One of the coolest things about this Camaro is that it's been with the same owner since new. The seller bought it directly from the original owner, which is a real testament to how well this car has been cared for over the years. It's only got 68,900 kilometers on the odometer, which is about 42,800 miles for our American friends, which is incredibly low for a car that's over 40 years old. Now, the seller does mention that the car sat for over 20 years before they got their hands on it. That's a long time for any car to be off the road, and it's definitely something to keep in mind. However, the seller has done a lot of work to get this Camaro back in fighting shape. They removed and cleaned the fuel tank, replaced the starter, battery, and alternator, and have been using it as a daily driver since April. The seller also mentions that this Camaro comes with 2 sets of wheels, the new wheels and tires that are currently on the car, and the original rally wheels. That's a nice bonus for any Camaro enthusiast who wants to switch up the look of their ride. Overall, this 1980 Chevrolet Camaro seems like a solid car with a lot of potential. It's got a numbers-matching engine, original paint, and low miles. The fact that it's been a daily driver for the past few months is also a good sign that it's mechanically sound. However, the peeling clear coat and the fact that it sat for so long are definitely things to keep in mind. 12. We've got a real treat for you on Craigslist. A 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix that's been in the same family since it rolled off the showroom floor. This is the kind of car that you don't see every day, and it's got a price tag of $10,500. So, let's take a closer look and see what makes this Grand Prix so special. First off, can we talk about the history of this car? The fact that it's been in the same family for over 40 years is a real testament to how well it's been cared for. You can tell that this Grand Prix has been loved and cherished by its owners, and that's something that money can't buy. Under the hood, you'll find a 301 cubic inch V8 engine that's ready to rumble. The seller mentions that the engine runs great and has plenty of life left in it with proper maintenance. That's always a good sign when you're looking at a classic car. You want an engine that's been well cared for and has plenty of get up and go. The exterior of this Grand Prix is painted in a sleek black color that looks absolutely stunning. Black is a timeless color that never goes out of style, and it really makes this car stand out from the crowd. The seller does mention that there are some cosmetic issues, but they don't go into detail about what those issues are. That's definitely something you'll want to check out in person. The interior of the car is a bit of a mystery, as the seller doesn't provide any photos or details about it. That's definitely something you'll want to investigate further before making an offer. You'll want to make sure that the seats, dashboard, and other interior components are in good condition and don't need any major repairs. Mechanically, the seller says that this Grand Prix needs nothing. That's always a good sign when you're looking at a classic car. You don't want to buy something that needs a ton of work right off the bat. However, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection from a trusted mechanic before making any deals. The odometer shows 114,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's over 40 years old. That could be a sign that this Grand Prix has been well maintained throughout its life. And with a clean title, you shouldn't have any issues with paperwork. At $10,500, the price is definitely on the high side for a 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix. However, the fact that it's been in the same family since new and has been well cared for could justify the price for the right buyer. These cars are getting harder and harder to find in good condition, and they're only going up in value. Overall, this 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix seems like a solid car with a lot of history behind it. It's got a strong engine, a clean title, and a sleek black paint job. The fact that it's been in the same family for so long is also a big selling point. However, the cosmetic issues and lack of information about the interior are definitely things to keep in mind. 13. Let me tell you about this absolute gem I just stumbled upon. A 1983 Ford Mustang GLX convertible that's currently up for grabs at $12,950. This beauty has only 37,156 miles on the clock, which is insanely low for a car of this vintage. Now get this, it's a one-owner car until recently, purchased new back in December '83. The current seller snagged it in June 2022, so you know it's been cherished. We're talking original paint and interior, folks. That's like finding a unicorn in the car world. Under the hood, you've got a 3.8L V6 paired with an automatic transmission. It's got all the goodies: power top, cold AC, power steering and brakes, tilt wheel, and cruise control. The factory stereo even has a cassette player with an amp booster. Talk about a blast from the past. The seller's description paints a picture of a car that's been meticulously maintained. They've done a tune-up, carb overhaul, and oil change recently. Plus, it's got a new top with a glass rear window. That's a big deal for convertible lovers. Now, I always keep it real with you guys, but in this case, there's not much to nitpick. The seller describes it as excellent condition, and from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. No accidents, clean Carfax, non-smoker car, and reportedly very solid with no rust. Look, if you're into 80s Mustangs, this GLX convertible is a rare find. It's not often you come across such a well-preserved example with this kind of history. Sure, the price might seem a bit steep, but for the right collector, this could be a real treasure. As always, I recommend checking it out in person if you're serious. But from where I'm sitting, this Mustang looks like it could be a real winner. What do you think? Would you take this '83 GLX for a spin? Let me know in the comments below. 14. Let me tell you about this absolute gem I just stumbled upon on Craigslist. A 1966 Plymouth Barracuda Formula S, and let me tell you, it's got my heart racing. This beauty is up for grabs at a cool $9,000, and honestly, that's a steal for what you're getting. Now I gotta be real with you guys. This isn't a showroom-ready car, but that's part of its charm. The seller's being straight up about it being a project car, and I respect that honesty. It hasn't been fired up in 3 years, so yeah, it needs some TLC. But that's where the fun begins, right? Let's talk specs, because this Barracuda is packing some serious heat. We're looking at a rare factory 4-speed manual transmission, which is music to any gearhead's ears. Under the hood, you've got a 273 cubic inch V8 with a 4-barrel carb. That's gonna sound sweet once it's purring again. And get this, it's got a factory 834 rear end with sure grip, so you know this baby can handle some serious power. The body's in surprisingly good shape for its age. The seller mentions very little rust and good floors, which is a huge plus for a car from '66. It's rocking a yellow paint job and those classic 14-inch steel wheels that just scream vintage muscle. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it hasn't run in years. True, but the seller says the compression is still good, and it's not seized up. That means, with a little elbow grease, you could have this rare Formula S back on the road, turning heads everywhere you go. Look, finding a '66 Barracuda Formula S in any condition is tough, let alone one with this much potential. Sure, it's got 100K miles on the clock, but that's just character in my book. With a clean title and a legit fender tag, this is a project that could really pay off. I gotta say, I'm feeling for the seller here. Parting with a dream project due to health issues, that's rough. But their loss could be your gain, my friends. If you've got the skills and the passion, this Barracuda could be your ticket to owning a piece of Mopar history without breaking the bank. So if you're in the area and you've got 9K burning a hole in your pocket, I'd say jump on this opportunity faster than a Barracuda in water. Just remember, it's cash only and local pickup. But for a chance to breathe new life into this classic, I'd say it's worth the trip. 15. We're diving into a real gem I spotted on Craigslist, a 1965 Ford Fairlane 500 Sports Coupe. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, the listing has a typo calling it a Furlane. But don't let that fool you. This classic beauty is up for grabs at $14,000, and let me tell you, it's got some interesting features that might just pique your interest. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. The listing says it's front-wheel drive, which is definitely an error. The '65 Fairlane was rear-wheel drive, so don't worry, you're getting the authentic muscle car experience here. Now, on to the good stuff. This Fairlane is sporting a straight-six engine, which might not be the V8 some of you were hoping for, but hear me out. These inline sixes are known for their reliability and smooth operation. Plus, with only 68,525 miles on the odometer, this engine's probably got plenty of life left in it. The seller mentions that the motor's been rebuilt, which is a huge plus. They've also installed new brakes and shafts, so you're looking at some fresh components in critical areas. That's always a good sign when you're dealing with a car that's pushing 60 years old. The body style of the '65 Fairlane 500 Sports Coupe is a real head-turner. It's got that classic mid-'60s Ford look that just oozes cool. The listing doesn't mention the paint condition, but given the overall good condition rating, I'd expect it to be presentable, if not perfect. One thing to keep in mind is that this Fairlane comes with an automatic transmission. For some, that might be a deal breaker, but for others, it's a chance to cruise in style without worrying about shifting gears. Now, I've got to be straight with you. The listing is a bit light on details. We don't know about the interior condition, any potential rust issues, or how well it runs. But with a clean title and the recent work done, it seems like a solid starting point for someone looking to own a piece of American automotive history. At $14,000, it's not the cheapest Fairlane out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially considering the low mileage and recent work. If you're in the market for a classic Ford that's not your run-of-the-mill Mustang, this Fairlane could be worth a look. 16. We're diving into a real treat I spotted on Craigslist, a 1968 Dodge Polara convertible that's caught my eye, and I think it might catch yours too. This classic Mopar is up for grabs at $7,250, and let me tell you, it's got some features that'll make any muscle car fan's heart race. First off, let's talk about that engine. We're looking at a 383 V8, folks. That's a big block with plenty of potential for some serious power. Paired with a 727 automatic transmission, this combo was a popular choice back in the day for good reason. It's got the grunt to move this big convertible with authority, and the smooth shifting auto makes for easy cruising. Now I've got to be honest with you, This isn't a show-ready car, but that's part of its charm. The seller's being upfront about the body being in primer, saying it was to cover thin paint, not hide Bondo. That's actually a good sign, as it suggests the body's pretty straight and rust-free. The floors and trunk are described as solid, which is crucial for a convertible of this age. Speaking of convertibles, the power top is said to be working. That's a big plus, because fixing those mechanisms can be a real headache. The interior is described as good, with usable door cards that might need some attention on the top sections. It's not perfect, but it sounds like a solid starting point. With 87,000 miles on the clock, this Polara's seen some action, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for a car that's over half a century old. It means it's been driven and enjoyed, not left to rot in a field somewhere. One thing that really catches my attention is that this is a black plate car. For those who don't know, that typically means it's been in California for a long time, which often translates to less rust and better overall condition due to the climate. Now, the seller's pretty clear about their terms. No trades, no scams, and no lowballers. They believe it's priced to sell, and honestly, for a big block convertible Mopar with a solid body, they might be right. Look, this Polara isn't going to win any concours shows as it sits, but it's got tons of potential. Whether you're looking for a fun project to cruise and improve over time, or you want a solid base for a full restoration, this could be your ticket to Mopar convertible ownership without breaking the bank. Remember, always inspect a classic in person before making a deal. 17. We're diving into a real piece of automotive history I stumbled upon on Craigslist. A 1960 Chevrolet Corvair 700. Now, before you scroll past, let me tell you why this quirky little car deserves your attention. First off, we're looking at a first-year Corvair here, folks. That's right, 1960 was when Chevy decided to shake things up and give us a rear-engined, air-cooled, compact car. This isn't just any old Chevy. It's a piece of engineering that had Ralph Nader up in arms. Now, let's talk specifics. This particular Corvair is the 4-door 700 model, which means it's got a bit more pizzazz than the base 500 series. The seller's asking $2,500, but they're open to offers, so there might be some wiggle room there. Here's where it gets interesting. The odometer shows just 38,000 miles. That's incredibly low for a 60-year-old car. If those miles are original, and remember, always verify claims like this, we're talking about a Corvair that's barely been broken in. Under the rear deck, you'll find Chevy's unique flat-six engine. It might not be a powerhouse, but it's got a charm all its own. Paired with an automatic transmission, this Corvair is all about that smooth, quirky driving experience that made these cars so distinct. The seller describes the condition as good, which is promising for a car of this age. However, they're pretty light on details, so you'll definitely want to give it a thorough once-over in person. Look for rust in the usual spots, check how that air-cooled engine is running, and make sure all the unique Corvair systems are functioning properly. Now, I've got to be straight with you. Corvairs can be a bit of a mixed bag. They've got a reputation for being a handful to drive, especially in wet conditions, thanks to that rear engine layout. But for enthusiasts, that's part of the charm. This is a car that demands respect and rewards skillful driving. At $10,500, it's not the cheapest classic out there, but for a first-year Corvair with potentially low original miles, it could be a solid deal for the right buyer. These cars have a dedicated following, and good examples are getting harder to find. So if you're looking for a conversation starter, a unique driving experience, or just want to own a piece of controversial automotive history, this 1960 Corvair 700 might be right up your alley. Just remember, with a car this old and unique, a pre-purchase inspection is a must. 18. I've got a real treat for you today, a 1953 Buick Super that's just popped up on Craigslist for $9,000. Let me tell you, this isn't just any old car. It's a slice of pure Americana that'll transport you straight back to the fabulous 50s. First off, we're looking at a Model 52, which is the four-door sedan version of the Super. This big beauty is dressed in a classy two-tone green paint job that just screams 1950s style. Now, the seller says it's in good condition, but remember, good for a 70-year-old car might mean different things to different folks. Under the hood, you've got Buick's venerable V8 engine, packing 164 horsepower from its 322 cubic inches. It's fed by a two-barrel carburetor, which might not be as flashy as later muscle cars, but it's got plenty of grunt to move this classic cruiser down the road with authority. One of the most impressive things about this Buick is its mileage, just 42,463 miles on the clock. If those are original miles, and always verify that, folks, this car has barely been broken in. It's like finding a time capsule on wheels. Step inside, and you're greeted by a two-tone green vinyl interior that the seller says is in good condition. The bench seat is reportedly holding up well too, which is great news for anyone looking to take the whole family for a nostalgic spin. Now, let's be real for a second. The seller mentions that the glass and chrome are in average condition. In classic car speak, that usually means they're showing their age a bit. But hey, that's part of the charm with these old beauties, right? This Super comes with some cool period features like spoked hubcaps, a clock, heater, and an AM radio. And let's not forget that iconic bomb sight hood ornament, a true hallmark of 1950s automotive design. At $9,000, this Buick Super isn't the cheapest classic out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially considering its apparent low mileage and overall condition. It could be a great entry point for someone looking to get into the classic car hobby without breaking the bank. Remember though, with any classic car purchase, it's crucial to inspect it in person or have a trusted mechanic look it over. These old girls can hide some surprises, and you want to know exactly what you're getting into. 19. We're taking a look at a real gem I spotted on Craigslist, a 1951 Plymouth Cambridge that's up for grabs at $8,500. Now, let me tell you, this isn't your run-of-the-mill classic. It's a slice of pure post-war Americana that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes this Cambridge as very clean and all original, which is music to any purist's ears. With only 63,560 miles on the clock, this Plymouth has seen relatively little action for a car that's over 70 years old. That's pretty impressive, folks. Now I've got to be straight with you. The seller's description is pretty light on details. They're not giving us much to go on beyond the basics, so if you're seriously interested, you'll definitely want to see this beauty in person and ask a ton of questions. Under the hood, you'd typically find Plymouth's trusty flathead 6-cylinder engine. These engines weren't powerhouses, but they were known for their reliability and smooth operation. The listing mentions it's got a manual transmission, which is great news for those who love to really feel connected to their classic ride. The 1951 Cambridge was Plymouth's entry-level model, but don't let that fool you. These cars had a certain charm and elegance that's hard to find in modern vehicles. Picture yourself cruising down Main Street in this time capsule, and you'll understand why these cars have such a devoted following. One thing to keep in mind is that being all original can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's fantastic to have a car that hasn't been messed with over the years. On the other hand, it might mean that some components are reaching the end of their lifespan. You'll want to check things like rubber seals, hoses, and electrical components carefully. At $8,500, this Plymouth Cambridge isn't the cheapest classic out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially if it's as clean and original as the seller claims. It could be a great entry point for someone looking to get into the world of 1950s classics without breaking the bank. 20. I've got a real treat for you today, a 1975 Chevrolet Corvette that's just hit the Craigslist market for $14,500. Now, let me tell you, This isn't just any old vet, it's a piece of American muscle car history that's been given some serious love recently. First off, we're looking at a coupe with T-tops, which is perfect for those of you who want the best of both worlds. The security of a hard top with the option to let the sun shine in. The sellers got it listed in good condition, and with that classic red paint, I bet it turns heads wherever it goes. Under the hood, you've got the iconic Chevy 350 V8 engine. Now, 1975 wasn't exactly the heyday of horsepower due to emissions regulations, but these engines are known for their reliability and potential for upgrades. It's paired with an automatic transmission, which might not please the purists, but it does make for easy cruising. One of the biggest selling points here is the list of new parts. The seller's been busy, folks. They've replaced the AC evaporator core, cooling fan, radiator and mount, engine mounts, front brake calipers, front shocks, control arm bushings, and lower ball joints. They've also had it aligned and changed the oil. That's a lot of work that you won't have to do. The odometer shows 87,933 miles, which isn't too bad for a 48-year-old car. It suggests this Corvette's been driven and enjoyed, but not run into the ground. Now, I've got to be straight with you. The listing has a couple of typos. Chevrolet instead of Chevrolet, brake instead of brake, which might make some folks wary. But don't let that put you off. It could just be an honest mistake, and the detailed list of repairs suggests the seller knows their stuff. At $14,500, this isn't the cheapest C3 Corvette out there. But considering all the recent work that's been done, it could be a solid deal for someone who wants a turnkey classic that's ready to hit the road. Remember though, with any classic car purchase, it's crucial to inspect it in person or have a trusted mechanic look it over. These old beauties can hide some surprises, and you want to know exactly what you're getting into. So there you have it, Corvette fans. A 1975 Chevy Corvette that's had some serious TLC and is ready for a new home. Whether you're looking for a weekend cruiser, a potential show car, or just want to experience the glory days of American muscle, this Corvette could be your ticket to ride. Happy hunting, and may the Corvette gods smile upon your search.